Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Okay, I'm Will Lewis. I'm hosting our guest speaker today, Jeff Allen. Let me give a little bit of background on Jeff first, and then we'll jump into his talk. So Jeff has actually been working in the industry of translation services and MT actually for a couple of decades. His BA is originally in French linguistics, and he has a MA and PhD in Creole linguistics. But I won't go through his entire work history here, but some of the crucial projects that he's worked on places where he's worked over time have been like the Center of Machine Translation in the Language Technologies Institute at Carnegie Mellon. He was also, he worked for ELDA, which is the European Evaluation Language Resources Distribution Agency, essentially the equivalent of the LDC here in this country. Worked there for a couple of years, and he's also advised and worked with Sistran and translations.com over time as well. He's currently at SAP and on the advisory board for Multilingual Magazine and Linguist List. And I do want to point out that Jeff has done a lot of work on Haitian Creole over the past 2 decades. In fact, he's been the champion, I think, in a way, for Haitian Creole and technologies for Creole. And he did a lot of work immediately following the disaster in January in getting data, Haitian Creole data, that was in IPR basically released so that it could be used for a variety of projects, including ours. And a lot of this data has been made publicly available through CMU, where he used to work, and there's still more data coming online. And it's almost amazing, actually, if you think about the fact that a lot of this data became available within days after the emergency. It's something that there was no publicly available data for Haitian Creole, and then within a few days there was a whole bunch of publicly available data thanks to Jeff's work. He was initially involved, one of the premier Haitian Creole projects was the Diplomat speech-to-speech project at CMU about a decade ago. And that's where a certain percentage of the data has come from. And he's still working on getting more of that data that's still under IPR available for general use. And I do want to issue a thanks to Jeff for having been a champion of our own project as well. As you know, Microsoft released Haitian Creole Engine within a matter of a couple weeks after the disaster, which was the first statistical machine translation, publicly available statistical machine translation for the Haitian Creole language ever to be released. And in no small part to a lot of Jeff's efforts, it gave us the kind of foundational data we use for building that project. So I turn you over to Jeff Allen.
Thanks. So, am I mic'd? Can you hear me? Can you hear me there? Good. Well, this was supposed to actually be a drop-in. I'm on vacation right now in the States, so I grew up in Oregon, so I was going to come up and just see my uncle yesterday in Mount Vernon and cousins, and Will and I met a couple months ago in Paris while he was doing conference talks, and I just said, hey, I'm coming through. Can I drop by for a coffee and meet the team? And this is a big coffee, so this is really great to have everybody here. And but I think the really important thing here is I've been wearing this. The reason why I'm here today is because of my wife and my kids. They have been the ones that have negotiated. I had to negotiate a lot with them for these 500 hours I spent the last 6 months. And I think I want you to give a round of applause to my wife and my kids that are in the aquarium today. But I think this is they have allowed me to do this for the last few months. So I wanted to also give a few things away. Will, you get the multilingual shirt, the silk one. I don't even have one of these. So, Will, that's you. This is great. Bev, I have reserved the multilingual coffee cup for you, so you can have it here. She's wanted one of these. I don't have one of these either. So, Bev organized for a place for me to stay last night, and the family. Thank you, Bev. And there's a whole history of that, and she's been involved in stuff. Who came the farthest to here other than me? I came from France, so anybody come farther than, who's come farther than like out of the state of Washington? How far? Well, there's two of you, so you both get t-shirts, a linguist-lace t-shirts, okay? So this is, here you go, and if I get two different sizes, but here you go, Brett. Oops. So I got 3 more t-shirts here. Who speaks the language closest to Haitian Creole as a native language? Anybody another Creole language? Haitian Creole? Any other Creole language? French? French speakers? Hey, I got 2 t-shirts going out. We're done. I got rid of all my t-shirts. This is great. Voilà. This is great. So I got the t-shirt sizes. You might have to work them out yourselves. So I just want to. You should all actually have also the magazine Multilingual. This is the interview article about the project that appeared in the March issue. So you should all have a copy. I get 70, so please take 2 or 3 and give them to your friends. I don't want to take them back to France because I don't have enough baggage. So let's make sure we get those 70 issues out and just and do that. Like you said, I'm with Multilingual Magazine on the board for 10 years, and this has been they've been really helping us promote what we've been doing here for this and the article and everything. I'm on the linguist list, and there's a lot of projects happening about the linguist list on less commonly taught languages and stuff. So I got little things about what they're doing. For the linguist list, there's about 27,000 linguists involved in that list, and it's been around for about 15, 20 years. So a lot. So just really thankful that we've got a lot of different groups that have been interested in this this activity. And the title, the geek. Oh, so the audience, are any of you non-geeks? So do we have only geeks, technology geeks, or do we have non-geeks here? So non-geeks, what did the non-geeks do for a living? Translators? Professional translators or not?
I'm not a geek.
Well, but I mean the computer geeky kind of folks. So we do have some linguists, translators, or anybody else doing anything else?
I'm an interpreter.
Interpreter, translator, interpreter. Okay, interpreter.
I'm adding Creole to my language.
Okay, so adding Creole into. Brett?
Science advisor to the commander of the United States Central Command.
Okay, so science advisor to the I could hear to this.
Advisor to the commander, General Mattis, United States Central Command.
So the United States Central Command. Okay, he came one of the farthest. Anybody else in the non-linguistics or non-computational things? Anybody else doing anything else? Because I kind of want to know who I'm talking to before it's kind of twist the way I have to talk. So the rest of you are all word lovers, right? Okay, so.
I teach French and ESL.
Okay.
And I do accent reduction for interpreters in English who have difficulty pronouncing.
So accent reduction does teaching English, teaching French, and teaching language as well. So, well, this is good. Well, the title of the talk, what people told me the dry, geeky title of the talk is the issues and challenges of putting minority languages or low data languages or less prevalent or lesser commonly taught or whatever we want to call them languages into online translation portals or even software. What I want to call the non-geeky title, what I want to call the talk today, is for the case study part, that is the Haitian Creole, but this applies to a lot of other languages too, is we're from a standing start. We're not sprinted down, but we're at a standing start. And where's that happening? Well, it happened from a dining room in France, and this is just me, and a basement in Colorado Springs, and 3 KOA campgrounds on the road from Colorado Springs to Oregon, and from a house on the Oregon coast, and lots of Wi-Fi spots and kind of all over the Pacific Northwest, and 3G wireless internet while on the road with the phone. So, plus a lot of other people that have been involved, a lot of volunteers. This has been probably one of the most complex program management things I've ever done in my career, to be able to help not just put the help the Haitian Creole be put up on the internet or in different forms and different different applications, but just to get data so we can do more. So this is, and I say the standing start, and we'll see that, this is what happens when everything's a lot is ready already. But the question would be, what do you do when you don't have this ready? And what are going to be the challenges to push forward for other languages? So just an outline of things, and it's a lot of points, but it'll go quick. We'll have time for lots of questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions. Put your hand up and ask a question, because I want this to be interactive. That's the goal of this. But so some of the things I want to cover, kind of an inventory or a status of where we are today is, sorry I didn't put the flying in animation, but I'm on vacation, so I just kind of finished this last night. Where are we with the websites for Haitian Creole? This is the case study for this language, but it applies to lots of others. And what do we do with this language resource, or LR, situation with the data? And for natural language processing, NLP, or human language technologies, there's another word, where we are with that for Haitian Creole, and we could apply that to other ones. We have to look at it. What's the status of these natural language processing systems today? And that covers both software and hardware, because you've got both, a lot of different challenges on those. What do we do? Do we have articles and conference talks on these for the Creole languages? What about available language resource data and content? And that includes I've got some new announcements, some new data I've been negotiating. And I've still got some more that I hope this talk is going to allow us to be able to promote to release. So, and I'll cover that in a couple minutes. With the data and process, other potential data, and what are some data usage achievements, what we do pre-disaster, and what was done post-disaster, and what are some concerns about language resources, and what are concerns about projects. What do you need to get a project up and going? So I really hope that as we go through this outline, that we see that this Haitian Creole one was just one example of 6,000 others. And we don't know what's going to be the next language that might a disaster for, but then there are all kinds of, we'll talk about the project I worked on that was actually for military intervention, humanitarian relief activities, and peacekeeping operations. That's what the project was for. That's why we were ready, because we already built the system many years ago. So let me kind of go through and do that. So the websites that you'll find anything about Haitian Creole technology stuff, this is kind of the summaries. So we got some up on the translatorscafe.com and some up at Prazi. And then I'm really thankful for the folks that helped put up my new website. They actually created the domain and the marketing name for it for me. I didn't create it. I just said to somebody, hey, you know me. So they said, Allen Keys to Languages would just be kind of cool. And I said, let's do it. So they created the domain and registered it, and other folks created the site for me, the WordPress site, and I just put content in it. So I'm just thankful. All the credits are up on the site and stuff. I don't want to go through all the names of everybody. I'd be sitting here all day thanking everybody. But this has been a huge a lot of things happening for us to be able to announce what's happening, where things are, and so others can, like Microsoft can come and use that and move on. So there are some things there. And then up on my LinkedIn and on my Facebook as well, if you see my Facebook, it's just every day. I'm doing a little bit of vacation stuff recently, but it is kind of talking a lot about Creole. So what is the status of Creole languages over the last 20 years? Well, there was a pre-doctoral thesis done in 1975 by Pierre-Philippe Naz that I cited back in one of my master's degree or my doctorate. I can't remember which one. And it was done in the Reunion Creole. I never met the guy. Just got decided about. It took a while to find it was even written. But the first really thing that happened afterwards was after I did my master's, my doctoral work. I had worked on Creole languages and then couldn't put money on the table, food on the table for the family. So I went into machine translation at Caterpillar, and got a call 2 years later from Caterpillar one day and said, "Hey, we know you've worked with us in Creole and we are in machine translation, and we've heard that you do Creole too, and we just have this opportunity to do a speech-to-speech bidirectional English Creole, Haitian Creole system. Would you be interested?" And I said, "How fast? This is a dream job." So I went there and spent a couple years doing that, building this portable English, Haitian Creole bidirectional system, and also in Korean, and also Serbo-Croatian, and we were working on Arabic too, and all that. So that was kind of the first system, and it was in 1997, 1998, and that's what a lot of this data came from that we've released here and recently. And there were no known updates. It was sitting in the box, so hasn't been used for the past decade. Then I was on the board for MIT2, so Mason Integration Technologies, so it's called MIT2 because she worked at MIT, so she called it MIT2. So it kind of helped try to get that off the getting going, and we created a business plan, 120-page business plan, marketing plan, product development plan for 30 products, and that's been sitting on a shelf because everybody thought I was nuts 10 years ago. Everybody told me that signed NDAs and everything. Everybody said, "There's no market, Jeff, for Creole languages." That's what I was told 10 years ago. And so today, and they've had the dot-com crash, 9/11. That wasn't interesting, so there were other languages. So that system sitting in a box for 10 years. The business plan for all these Creole languages was sitting in a box for 10 years. And my wife and I had supported a Haitian child through Compassion International for 7 years, and all written in Creole. And I'm sitting in front of television crying in January, just crying. So I had to do something, or I'd probably be miserable to the end of my days. So there's that business plan, and a lot of those things that were in that business plan have happened over the past several months, just from ideas happening. The same things that we had written about a decade ago have begun to happen already, so some of them. We've seen that there's a Haitian Creole spell checker that's been done for OpenOffice and for Firefox. And right now, Firefox is being localized or translated into Haitian Creole, 17% right now. There's plans to have it done by next month. So this might be a kind of a competition here to see, can we do Internet Explorer? So, and we'll talk about why that's important in a minute. And then we do have called the char character lifter by Kevin Scandal at St. Louis University. That was done also in December 2009. It basically is like we did the same thing, Carnegie Mellon. You do a character a diacritic reinserter, because what happens, a lot of the language data that was put out in the internet about 10 years ago, they stripped all the accent characters out because they couldn't handle it from the encryption. Well, that's really difficult to reuse, so you have to reinsert all those accents. And so you have to, that's what we did, and so he's actually got a, not for Haitian Creole just only, he's got it for a lot of different languages, but Haitian Creole is one of them. So there's a few things that have been happening already. So there was kind of this momentum happening, and we were ready in January because things had already been done. So immediately after, in January 2010, Asian Online said, they put up on LinkedIn, they said, we're ready, we'll create a system if we just get data. Well, there just wasn't any data. And even when we put out on the 21st of January, I'll give the stats of how much the data we gave, which is basically 350,000 words. It just wasn't enough for them to do anything. So we did put out the data, and as Will said, the first system that was up and running within the talk is 4 days, 17 hours, and 5 minutes, something like that. So 30 minutes. So that's how quick it happened. Once a certain amount of data was released, plus extra data, there was other data too, and I'll mention what I kind of see of other data. There's probably more too. I'm sure everybody's got more, but and there are issues with that and dealing with that. But so within 5 days, the first system was up, and then of course all the competitors coming up theirs a week later, and then the BlackBerry. I have been doing BlackBerry demos all the time because it's the only one that I've got on there. When in Google and Microsoft, I show Microsoft Messenger, to people on my BlackBerry or on the Pocket PC, and this has put really a huge impact with trying to motivate and say there's no debate if it's a language anymore. Everybody debates if this is language. What is this? Well, when you put something into a translation system, you can't. I told my Haitian colleagues years ago when we developed this speech-to-speech system, once you put it into a translation system, there's no debate what it is anymore, because you can't translate from a language into what is this non-language kind of thing? They both have the same social status. And this is very, very important to have these technologies in here, because this gives a lot of ability to negotiate with now the political leaders of the countries to say you should be able to put this education reform now should be make it available it should be an official language. Haitian Creole is an official language, but it's not necessarily the one that all the education materials are written in. It doesn't have the social status. But once you put it into those technologies, there's no more discussions. It's just they want it to happen. So this had more. The initial thing was to help the doctors in Haiti. Well, we had internet concerns, but this is a long-term thing, and this is very, very important. Now I'm saying Haitian Creole, but there are 6,000 other languages out there that are dealing with this as well. So, and then Interlect, they did BlackBerry, and then in the March crisis camps, DC put up the crisis TERP, which participated in, and then at the crisis camps Paris, on the end of April, one of the folks that are one of the PhD students in the MT machine translation field, he came with a 1 laptop per child, running with the Moses open source machine translation statistical machine translation system, running on this little toy laptop, locally, no connection. They kind of had to tweak it to get it to run on this old toy laptop, and there are what I've heard is there are 23,000 of these 1 laptop child laptops out in Haiti today. Not with the translation system. There have been 23,000 of these things out there. So if we get a translation system running on this, you just take the sticks out and you can put them in, or maybe you can download it. But there's so much potential for spreading being able to translate materials from English into Haitian Creole for the kids. There's huge potential. So there's a lot of things happening that have been happening. So what are our constraints? Well, we've got 3 kind of topics, and I don't have all the details written here. I'm just kind of talking through what I know is what we've done. But we've got 3 types of things that we kind of mentioned this morning when we were just kind of discussing. Or you've got some software application kinds of constraints. Is it text to speech, speech to text, speech to speech, text to text? Who's going to be the users of this? Are they going to be doing input or whatever on a laptop, or are they going to have to be talking to something, or what's going to be the actual communication vehicles? You have to define those and know what you're going to do. And that's so you got all the software kind of constraints. And then you have the hardware constraints, which are what kind of operating system you're going to put onto. And we do have the issue with the one from the Diplomat project, that speech-to-speech system 12 years ago, because got to go back 12 years. 12 years, what were we running back then? Well, we wanted to be on these little portable devices, but they just weren't there yet. So the best thing we'd have was this, the cubes back then. It didn't have, no screen or thing. It's a computer cube, from an industrial company that did it. And I think even at Caterpillar, I saw some of these for the servicemen, so they don't have to touch the screen. They can do tactile. They can just touch it, and no greasy hands. They can just no serviceman. You can touch it and SGML it and find it. So we had one of those, the Carnegie Mellon, and it was running 128 mega RAM. That was the hottest we could get, 128 mega RAM back then, running this speech-to-speech translation system of 6 different systems running on this box. We were putting ice packs, those ice packs they put out so it would melt during the demos to keep the thing cool. So that's what the hottest we had back then. Well, that thing's running on Windows NT version 4. It has probably been booted for 10 years. So there's no way we could just pull it out of the box and start running it today. We'd have to port it to a newer version, or we'd have to port it to a newer platform. And that takes work, and there wasn't any funding for it. So we just had to say, well, what we're going to do, and we'll just give the data away. We'll give the data away. The data is the stuff that you can do the quickest with. So there are software application constraints. There are hardware constraints. And right now, as we're talking among different people, the whole question is, well, what platform do you want to be on? I mean, is it going to be running on a... What do the people have? Do they have laptops? Well, no. No one's running around in Haiti with laptops. Maybe pocket PCs or iPhones, but there's no internet connection. So there are lots of what kind of device people are going to be using, and are they going to be talking into it? They have to type. Can you see the doctors typing into a iPhone like this while they're trying to save people's lives? Well, no, that doesn't fit. So there are lots of these. Who's going to use it? How are they going to use it? What are the conditions? What are the use case scenarios? How are these people actually going to use it? And then define what platform you're going to put it on. And you want something that most people are going to be able to use. So what's going to be the most frequently used phone in that context if there's an internet connection? Well, that's another thing is the phone cable had been severed under the ocean, so there was no internet connectivity for like 2 weeks. So there's all these things that nobody could use the internet. So we're putting all these systems up, but nobody could use it. So we have a lot of those constraints. So you do bring in some Wi-Fi, hotspots, local ones, and set them up, or what do you do? And even today, it's still a concern. So these are a lot of these constraints you have to think about, and that's additional system constraints. And then the third point is language data. Haitian Creole is a low data language, which means that there isn't much there. Sparse data. We call it less prevalent languages, or less widely used, or whatever, less commonly taught languages. But there's just isn't data. And so we do have this situation where we were able to release 350,000 words, basically, in our project, plus 35,000 translated terms. But that wasn't all of it. And it's locked by IP, which I'll mention here in a minute. So what do we do with these other languages out there that don't have that much? What do you do? So the next thing is I think what we were able to benefit from was I'd written over 40 articles on the topic 10 years ago. Or 20 to 10 years ago, so over a 10-year period of time. So we had a lot of stuff already documented about it. And to understand that when we released the speech data, Bev, how long did it take me? It took me about 6 weeks to get somebody to write up a README for it. Yeah. About that. I had a lot of articles already written about the system, but in different places, and I was, completely... I didn't have the time to go do everything, so I just tried to find somebody to read through all my articles and then go ahead and pull out the key information to write a README about the speech data. So, and it took me a long time to find somebody that would spend through, and we found Samia Karen Wallace, who actually, her background is doing this, and she said one day, I want to help. And so I said, okay. I'd already identified the articles, and even the sections, said, go read all these and write the complimentary README about the speech data that we've already put out. And she did a great job and came back, and she had written up a summary that just described exactly about the data and everything about it, the people that could use it. So now we have all this data up there. for 150 speakers, speech data. The models are there. They're ready to go. It's even described, everything about it. And thanks to a lot of people participating in that, because it was already ready. All the information about it was ready to go in these 20, 30 articles and conference talks and all that kind of stuff. So, so that's all available. But a lot of this, when we're talking, some of us are talking earlier this morning, is do other languages even have this much about it? No. I mean, this is the lucky one. Again, we're at the standing start to jump in and do this. Many languages, you don't have the data, don't have anything written about it. So this is really the one of the lucky ones. So we're doing a case study of what was the lucky one and why were we lucky. Everybody thought it didn't have data. We had a lot here. So what did we release? Well, the Carnegie Mellon text data is just 15,000 parallel sentences that we translated in-house for a year and a half. Over a period of a year, a little over a year, because we had to revise it. I had 3 colleagues. We just trained them how to do translate, edit, proof. And we scrubbed it of the translations. And we had other translations. We actually had 2 that we'd taken from other sources. And we scrubbed that and standardized it too. So we had 35,000 translated terms that came out of the data that we already had. And it's all up there. But that only represents a small portion of all the data, the 1.5 million words we had, because 12 years ago, we were just going to use this in a black box, this little box. So we just wanted to borrow data. I made a lot of gentlemen's agreements to just use data. We even translated like the Jesus film. We did the transcription of that, redid it, and did it in the new orthography, so we could use their speech data plus the text data that we gave it back to them in electronic format. We were doing translation for people for free, just so we could have data that we could put in the box. So we had never thought about that we'd have to distribute the data later on. So you can imagine 12 years later, do the people exist anymore? And of course, there were like 20 sources of data, so like 10,000 words here, 20,000 words here. I think the biggest one is 30,000. We had the Bible, which is 23,000 sentences. To go back and try to explain it to a new person that's there, okay? That 12 years ago, I spent a lot of time doing it, over 9 months. But I got to go back and do it within days. And for 10,000 words, the Jesus film was like 11,500 words. The time to fill out the form, get the signatures from everybody and the entire organization was overkill for 11,000 words. For these statistical-based systems where you want 1 million words minimum, and you want clean data. So we had to make a lever, kind of just say, this is my free time, and I've got to really prioritize. So I'm not going to go and try to negotiate the 20,000 here words here, the 30,000 here, the 10,000 here, the 4,500. So I won't do that. I'll try to work on the 1 million. Well, I'm still working on the 1 million, and I probably should have spent all the time to redo the negotiations with the 10,000, 11,000, 20, because I probably would have got the 1.5 million in the 6 months. Because I probably would have found at least the next new colleague and would have explained it. So I probably could have done it as fast. I decided to go one route, which was the bigger route, and we're still in that same catch-22 today. So there's the speech data, and there's 150 speakers up there that we did through the Diplomat project, and it's a full speech recognition system, kind of like you buy from IBM Via Voice or Dragon Naturally Speaking. It just needs to have another 300 or 400 speakers for it to get a little bit more robust, and there's ways to do that. But it's all up to the speech models, just being ready to be used. Just ready. So just saying to people, use it. There's that. No, she had data, the whole SMS text messages, there's a lot of that happening for urgent emergency, 9/11 type, I'm stuck, and I'm somewhere under some gravel or in a elevator that's been pinned down by the falling building. Please get me out. And so there was, well, do you know how many? I was hearing there was just thousands and thousands of messages.
Tens of thousands of messages.
I mean, just per day, there were
up to 5,000 an hour.
5,000 an hour. So there are translators. The Facebook had to find the 10,000 translators for Haiti thing. They were just, lots of people wanted to donate their time to translate these, but there's no spell checker. Okay, there's no available. No one knew it, the one that I just announced, because no one knew about it yet. Plus, people, it's in urgent mode, so people are translating rapidly. So that text did exist, but the warning that we had to be careful is how good is it, quality-wise, especially all the typo stuff. What do you do? Is it good enough to put in a baseline system, a starter system? And I think you guys use that data. So, there's always things. How does that help or pollute?
We cleaned it up.
And you cleaned it up too. So there's, and you guys knew you needed to clean it up, but were everyone cleaning up data, or were they just kind of using it? So when you mix good and bad together, you tend to get bad. And I did have some things, people that were mixing up data and sending me sentences from the time, and I said, my old system doesn't give that sentence. So there's something in there being polluted from somewhere else, and it wasn't our data that we had in that old system back then. So so there's that, and I think there have been efforts to clean that up in general. The text data, the SMS text data. Now I do have some more tourism data, kind of touristic data. It's about 10 or 12 pages. It's not that much. So contact me for that. I just got to reformat it and all that. I haven't had time in the last several months. But we do have a new 85,000 words of data, so source data that have been translated into Haitian Creole. The health sector, which Glypha Language Services has told me a couple days ago that they're willing to give away. So they do have that, and they've got experience in MT and stuff, but they are a translation company. So that's been one of the things I've been kind of working on, is finding that. So almost 100,000 words, which is a good starter. But there is the situation right now where there have been a lot of content has been translated by professional translation companies, Haitian owned, or others that are working in pockets where there are a lot of Haitian communities in North America, and that content in general tends to be locked by contracts where you can't do anything derivative with it. And so I have been really working for the last several months to try to unlock that data, unlock it so that it can be used for all these other systems I've been mentioning, to be able to use it in them. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to unlock that. So I'm hoping that this talk right here is going to allow us to be able to maybe negotiate to be able to unlock that in some way, to be able to give to Haiti, because again, we see how much work this is to try to give me $1 million, and I'll probably set up a team, and it'll take us about 9 months to do this over again. But what if we could just unlock it for a specific purpose, that is using it in these translation or language systems, speech systems, for that specific purpose. Is not to reuse the content for other translation needs. It's just to train these systems so that they can do better. So I'm hoping that we could. I'm working on a 1 million word right now. Well, it's been for like 5 months. So I'm hoping that we can do something for that rather than have to reinvent the wheel. And there are others that I'm working with, and I've just recontacted a couple days ago, and so they're just saying, what can we do? What can we do? So we've got a lot of, these are some of those that are available, and if you think about it, I did the inventory 12 years ago, and there's a little bit more available here and there, but it hadn't changed significantly over the past decade, and it started changing radically within 2 or 3 months with the SMS data and others, and then people started putting their health dictionaries online and things like that, and so there are lots of other sources that I'd have to make lists of this, so that's why I just put up on the website. But people wanted to give to be able to help the doctors and the nurses in Haiti and all those that were doing crowd control and all that. So this has been a significant effort to do it. But this is really, we don't have a lot of data. I mean, I don't know how much data you have, total words to train it on. We had 1.5 million words, so we had it pretty good, but then we described it for 2 years. So, so it's, there's kind of this threshold, and you guys are probably at a minimum threshold working on it and trying to do what you can, and there are others that are doing it too. So, any questions? I'm hoping I'm going to incite questions here as we maybe look at other languages. Bev?
What tools did you use for managing this?
What tools do we use? That's an interesting thing. Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word. The first couple of weeks, people started wanting to donate their platforms to me, or donate. There are a lot of things wanted to, like a translation workflow platform. So for a lot was happening in just basic formats, because the people that we were working with, we were being collaborative, but there's people all over, and it's not organized, and it's an urgent mode. So you've really got to make it happen quickly. So you don't have time to think about where you're going to set up, and if you think about the time you have to negotiate to actually make it happen, you have to judge that and say, well, if I want to spend doing this and negotiating all this time to get this platform for free, and I have to customize it and do all that, how much are I going to have just done it in a manual mode and done it? So we tended to take the manual mode. But we did get, we did have the XTM translation memory system open. It's an online translation memory system which was donated to us we got a sandbox set up. And so we did a lot of the translation of the articles about the projects through that with folks that want to translate, and that has been really helpful. We've been trying to see if we can get the whole translation workflow system set up too, and there's just issues of having to have servers and all that to do it. So there's infrastructure issues. This was not a funded project. It was just kind of crowdsourcing in the sense, and a non-funded or non-infrastructure crowdsourcing setup. So it's on a home laptop, that kind of thing. So a lot of just whatever tools you can get, and you have to remember too that I'm working with a lot of people that are maybe in the publishing industry and setting. So it's a different mindset, more traditional. So trying to get things to be in a format, they're not in this human language technology geek type setup. So you just have to kind of step back and try to work with people and explain it in layman's terms and try to work with them. So a lot of things were just email. I want to do it better, but you have to invest in that better and to configure it and all that. So these are a lot of considerations to do, and it wasn't like we had 6 months to think about it. It had to be done now. But that's what we did. So yes.
Is English the only language it's translated into?
Right now, there's some pivoting. I think are you guys doing the pivot tricks?
You're talking about the data.
The data, yes. Mainly it's English to Haitian Creole, just because Haitian Creole is one of the 3 official languages in Florida. So because of that legal status, that's what it's a necessity for all the health sector stuff to be put into there, and all the government stuff. There's also pockets in Boston and New York City, so it tends to be English to those languages because of that necessity for those groups and those populations. There could be French to Haitian Creole, but there's very little, and so it remains there. Those would be the true languages that would have some maybe marketing or a market need for that, but nothing else done. And we know that there are, I mean, there was this. I heard that there were going to be 40,000 NGOs involved in Haiti for the whole period. We're talking. Let's see, Brett. How many NATO? There are like 30 nations. 28. So we could imagine that they're all kind of, a lot of those could be involved. So that's a lot of different languages. People coming from those different languages coming to want to be involved in a thing, in kind of initiatives like this. So, but this language has no market value. Again, I'm told 10 years ago there's no market value for this language. So there's no need to put it into any other language paired up. But there are some pivoting techniques. So you could translate from French into English and English into Haitian Creole. So you can go French to Haitian Creole through a kind of a pivot, and that has a lot of you have to be very careful of that, because then you kind of, the quality, you're doing steps that can have some issues with that, depending on if you're mixing speech and text too.
I thought it was, it could also translate from Haitian Creole to English or Haitian Creole to whatever.
Yeah, so bidirectional. Bidirectional would be English to Haitian Creole and Creole back to Haitian Creole back to English. So not just one language direction, but could be the pair. And I've seen that a few different portals or things can do it, so you can do it other languages too. But some of them are going through other languages to do that. So, and again, that the quality is. And then it depends, what do you want out of it? What do you need it for? So if you got to, if you're trying to decide if you're going to amputate the person's arm or something, you want it to be pretty good, because you want to ask them if they're okay with it, but if you have some time to talk with them, I mean, there's a lot of things happening right now with the whole traumatism of, there's a lot of things happening right there, rape and a lot of things with trauma. They're going through trauma, so you have to be able to communicate with them and talk with them, and there just aren't enough translators or interpreters out there to help. So there's these are situations where you just don't want to miss, or like crowd control, you don't want to miss what you're trying to say. So there are a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration about the leverage of quality of the dialogue happening. So, but again, this was just English back and forth to Haitian Creole is kind of what's available. So, so what are the concerns that we've I think we learned from this, is that one thing is that we've got distribution channels. We mentioned them earlier. There's the Linguistic Data Consortium, LDC, at the University of Pennsylvania, which is a distribution channel for language data for these types of systems. And there's also the European Language Distribution, now it's called the Evaluation Language Distribution Agency, Language Resources Distribution Agency in Paris, and then there are other ones too. There are lots. That their mission is to license data for training systems. That's what they do. That's their main mission. But that means being able to set up these licenses. It means to work with the data providers it's great when you're working with data providers that are used to doing this, and they're used to working with these business models and all that. But what do you do when you're working with these low data languages that they're in copyrighted, published format where you have pictures in it, and you want to sell this book for $10? And your goal is to get royalties off the sales of this and the resales of it. So what happens is, this is a completely different thing, because in these contexts, you don't care about the pictures, you don't care about, all you want is the text data, and you just want to pull it in, and you want to have it, it'd be great if it's tagged data, because that would help, but if you don't have it, just straight text would be great too. You can reformat it and do what you want, but just having that, and then just have it for a one-time shot. You don't want royalties, you just want to use it one time to train the system. You can retrain it again for other things, but you just want it to train the system to do better. And it's not to reuse the content to translate, it's to train the system to recognize these structures, these linguistic structures. So, and to do better, and to maybe use other data to complement it. So this is a different business model, a different scheme than most of these data providers are used to doing. And so this is a lot of marketing That's a lot of discussion. It takes time to educate them. And this is something you can't do in urgent mode. So I think we have to think about this as we look at other languages. Because this showed it, I mean, I've been doing this for how many months now? I'm still trying to work with, and I'm sure that the other ones, the other systems are doing the same thing. You're all trying to get this data and to explain it and to use it in a way that will be for the community. You also have the problem that all this copyrighted data, you can't turn it into open source because it's already copyrighted. So you've got a lot of things to deal with there that you can't just, so you can do open source stuff if you start open source, but what do you do if it's already been copyrighted? So you have to be very innovative. I mean, this is a difficult thing to do. So we talked to educating and distribution, the negotiation, I mean, I've had a lot of lawyers on the team, and I did this for 2 years. I did all these agreements for 2 years and wrote them when I worked at ELDA. So you've got to have the background to be able to negotiate this. And that's when it's set up, it's okay, but what do you do when you have to go out and market it? We also have the issue of the public domain data that can be poor quality. You scrape the internet, you don't know what you're going to get, and you have to clean it up, and you have to know if it's even, is that even Haitian Creole? Or is that Martinican Creole? Or is that Guadeloupean Creole? Or which spelling system is that written in? Because, see, in English we don't, okay, so we have North American English, we have British English, we have Australian English, but they kind of, we have some spelling differences, all the idea with it's an S or a Z, or do they have a U in color or not? And we have a few things, and we have a bunch of words that are different. I mean, but really the number of differences are, but what do you do with Haitian Creole? You have 11 different spelling systems that are all recognized over the last 200 years. And I won't count the hybrids of that. So if you think about it, people on Sunday morning can read their Bible in one orthography from 1940s, and then on Monday they go to school or they go to work, and if they happen to be using Haitian Creole, they're writing in another orthography that was standardized in 1980. And then if they go down to the local graffiti poster area, and there's writing all the things about the dance the next Saturday night is written in another spelling system. So all of the words of the video that I did in Haiti 12 years ago, I said, what is the word for a 7-day period of time? And that's semaine. So I asked people how and you hear this, people pronouncing it slightly different in the room. And then I said, how do you write it? And everybody started disagreeing about how you write the word semaine. And I said, now you see the problem, is that if you can't even agree on the writing of one word that has 7 different spellings, tell me what spelling system you're going to be using, and if you're using a hybrid, what do you do when the language has the majority of all the words in the entire language have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ways to spell it? What do you do when you want to build a translation system or a speech system to work with that? There are a lot of different things that language itself had specific constraints about. And there are other languages. We'll mention Thai has its own thing. It's all just stringed out. It has its own constraints. What do you do with pictograms? What do you do with other types of things? So every language is its own thing, but there were just having multiple spelling systems and non-standardization is a very difficult thing.
Do you think that the necessity to opt for one of these systems or the others just that you can get something up and running, do you think that's going to have the effect of standardizing spelling in Haitian Creole? And I'm thinking of something that might be similar to the printing press, when the printing press came to the British Isles, and the spelling systems fell by the wayside since.
Well, there is a standard. There's the official one. The IPN is the official one in 1980. It's the official one. But the fact that you still got the Bible in the old one, or you still got other reference materials that are in the old ones, or I have at home the entire library of all of the things about Haitian Creole phonology for the last 200 years. Because it depends if you want to be etymological and you want it because it's in French, or if you want to be phonetic because it wants to. It's all politics along those lines, and it's all about which perspective you're coming to. But it comes down to is you need to have some kind of standardization to be able to focus on it, but you want to recognize as much as possible because you might get a lot of noise. And you might have to just be able to recognize a lot of different things. Like when you're doing speech systems, you want it to recognize as many accents as possible, but you might want it just to pronounce one single accent. Same problem. So there are lots and lots of things. This is not a simple question, and this is one language we're talking about, just one. So, and this is one where you see, we can. This is just a case study, and we had data to start with, and we had systems ready to kind of pull the data and do something quickly. And this is like the T-bot. So we have Bing go up, and then have the T-bot, which is just a little friend inside of. That we call it the friend. We call or the. It's a bot, but I mean, what do you call this in MS Messenger? We call them they come friends or something. So it's just a kind of you connect to the T-bot just like you connect to a friend or a colleague or something, and then it just becomes a translator, an interpreter online for you, and you can go ahead and just type in and just you select your language direction, and it translates for you, and so I've used this. When I even worked at Sistran, I did the same thing we did for customer support, where language I didn't speak. We'd have somebody come in and want to do an activation, had some problems, so I'd just pull up, a chat window, and then have the Sistran system. We'd just come in a language I didn't know. We'd go ahead and put it in the translation system and do the chat. So it'd take 40 minutes to do something that normally takes 20, but they were happy. We got it done in a language that the customer support person didn't know. So now we have for Haitian Creole this actually built inside of the chat, so it can be online chat. So this is great. This is really happening. The only thing you struggle with is do people write? See, when we were doing Sistran, we were doing customer support. So I knew that we had to make people we had to write back in full sentences, so you'd try to get the structure down so it would translate as well. But most people are doing chats. They're doing emoticons and smileys and all that kind of stuff. So you have a lot of that noise there. So this is in chat you want to be you think it's unfamiliar, kind of want to be whatever. Whereas you want to try to use as much structured language to try to avoid ambiguity in general, and this is a general principle, so that you have to give it the translation system the most amount of possibility to give a decent translation without getting into all of the other issues that we've got for other languages. So these are challenges. These are big challenges, and we're just beginning to mention a few. And the other thing is to disaster relief. We have all the issues here with the budgets. So that's and the budget's going down. And just quickly here, and I want to kind of get some interactive questions here and discuss other languages. So what are the kind of project constraints you run into? Well, you've got one is what do you do when you have this open source crowdsourcing approach with people that many of them might be in the software industry and might have to deal with their contracts and how they deal with that, but how can they participate when they're doing it all from 8 o'clock at night until 12 o'clock because they're in it's a volunteer type of pro bono situation, and you've also got the situation where the electricity, the internet connection is only good in the evenings, so you've got that constraint as well. What do you do when the electricity and the power generators aren't helping? And so that creates other issues. So these are a lot of constraints. The projects, we have to do things. We're having multiple people right now trying to do some of the open source work, and we've got 7 people working a total of 4 hours a day because the internet connectivity is going up and down all this time to do the work, to even do any of the translation work for any of the online stuff right now. So what do you do with getting students to help out? And I've tried that because I'm looking for owners of this too. I don't want to have to do this for the rest of my life. I want the Haitians to own this, but getting some of them to because they would need to get funded to do it. So how do we get it so they can move on and do something with it and actually get funding to work on their master's or PhD or whatever? And you need to have to get the funding. You have to have eligible champions to do this, to write the proposals. because I've written nothing. I've missed proposals, major proposals of funding, just because I'm not in the position at my company to be able to put my name on it with my company to do something, because that's not what I do for a living. So we've got, these are challenges that you have to do in order to get, and we're talking about funding here and getting funding. We have people to write the proposals and write winning proposals and get the funding for it. And then finding those potential future owners and vetting them, selecting them, training them, transferring your knowledge and your expertise and the how-to to them, so that they can go the next step and do more. So these are there's a lot here, and we've still got still got another 20 minutes. But this is just one case study. There have been a lot of challenges. We've done a lot of great things in a few months with volunteer time. I have fired a lot of volunteers. I have gotten rid of volunteers in these projects because they said they would do something, and then they let me down, and then I had to pick it up and redo it again. And then I just learned that I just don't want to take anybody. I have to vet these people. I have to say, the doctors that are going to Haiti right now, they're not going there and sitting down on their rear end and not doing anything. They are working. So if you want to do Haiti Disaster Relief from your dining room, you need to be serious, because the kinds of situations where I have to be negotiating things, if I don't deliver, then the entire reputation we brought to this thing is completely down. And then it just makes it so that people don't want to continue with it. So this has been a lot of work to work with volunteers to do it and to encourage them, but to say up front, when you're going to deliver it by, and how do I know that you're going to do it? And you really know what you're getting into. So that's where the disaster relief comes into play. That's very, very tense. So this is one case study. There's one example. And we don't have any speech systems up and running yet. We got the models there. They're ready to go. Someone just has to come out and use those and do it, but they have to define what you want to do with those, with the purpose and how we can do it. So I just really want to open up for questions and do things. So, Joe.
So no one else is doing this except for you, in terms of trying to come up with some ability to translate from English to Creation and back? There's no other U.S. government effort, no Haitian.
And I'm not doing anything. I have stated nowhere that I'm innovating anything right now. So I have not done anything. But just take intellectual property that already existed and make it aware, or talk with people to have content and help them get it out. But I've done nothing software-wise. It's just I'm trying to avoid that right now. So I'm trying to enable others to be a catalyst for others to do it, and there can be. I'm talking with open source folks. I'm talking with the students. I'm talking Microsoft. I'm just trying to let others do it. So there are several, and I've indicated those that I'm aware of. Now there are probably others too, but not very many. So and they're willing. There are some that want to do it. They just need more data. They need much more data. So some people tell me they need 1 million words to kind of start with. So everybody's kind of looking at that 1 million words. So I've been negotiating, trying to get the 1 million words out too. So I tell everything I've been doing has been very focused. Everybody wants me to can you help us get a plane to go to Haiti? No, that's not my thing. My thing is just language technologies and language data. That's all I'm going to do right now. So keeping focused on that, because if you can't get the language data, then you can't make the technologies work. And if you don't have the technologies, then you can't negotiate to try to do more, or you can't make a proof of concept to make it people want to have more. So this is the list. This is the list. I'm sure that there's several trying to. I'm talking to all the Haitians that have data, but of course we get things. Are they all on the same computer? Or they, and there's trust. I've been saying for the last several months is that it really had nothing to do with who you are really who your affiliation is with or anything. It just it didn't matter what degree you got, your name or company you're with or anything. It all came to who you are, who you know, and how much they trust you. So I just happened to be trusted 12 years ago because it took me 10 years of working in the field plus 2 years of working with the people to convince them to do it. So I came back and they knew I had worked at the company and tried to do it, and they got, .com crash and everything. Everybody kind of knew that. So there was all the trust had been set up. So when we got that stuff out in a couple of days, it was because of trust. So how fast for other languages, for Polish or for Turkish or for some other languages from Zimbabwe or Lingala, how much trust do you have and do I have to go out and get that stuff very quickly to be able to set up a system and do it? There's a lot of that too. So it's not simple. Question?
Yeah, you talked about collecting data and having it tagged and stuff, and I'm thinking, what about languages that have no writing system yet? Can you collect straight oral data and make that of any use?
This is a great question because we've had discussions over this in the last couple months. So my first question was somebody coming to me about what about these languages? So the question here, for those that are on listening to the recording, is what do you do about languages that we've got data for a language that exists in written data, but what do you do about languages that don't even have a writing system, a spelling system yet? So to kind of give you an idea of how much time it takes to create the spelling system and to make it standardized. If you take the Bible translators, for example, because they do this all the time, like Wycliffe Bible translators and others, those projects usually run about 20 years. So they will go out and listen and sit with the people and spend the time pronouncing the clicks and writing it down in phonetic alphabet, and then finally they decide what are the sounds, what does kind of go together as words. And then they decide, okay, now we want to put this into a writing system, and then you kind of work on the standardization of it, and then you'll translate folklore stories and stuff like that for the people, and then you finally do the Bible, and then you go ahead and try to teach the people to read and do all that. And that takes, depending on the language, if it's related to another one or not, but it takes 20 years in general, 15, 20 years. So that's a long process. And we've got the linguist list is just a lot of linguists, and a lot of them do this kind of thing, working in different languages all over the world. And so if you take putting that system into place is a long process. So what do you do with languages where you don't have it? Can you bootstrap this and just take speech data and just start transcribing it like that? Well, Will, are you aware of any type of IPA speech system? That I'm not aware of any international phonetic alphabet speech recognition system that can take any content and just kind of spit it out in international phonetic alphabet and let people use that to try to writing. I'm not aware of it. Somebody's known about it. Please tell me. So there's a huge. That's where we're at, and I know we've been discussing it in general. What do you do? How fast? And my first question is, does it have a spelling system? To start with, have people been working on it? Are there academics out there even working on these languages? And has anybody been master's degrees or PhDs on it already, so that we know that we've got something to start with? And when we tried to do the speech-to-speech for Arabic at Carnegie Mellon, we had a Fulbright scholar who came for 3 months, and we worked on it. And the first thing we decided is which version of Arabic are we going to do? Which flavor? Are we going to make a snow cone version of all the flavors kind of combined to make this black-purple kind of color? So which version? So do you take Egyptian, Moroccan, Lebanese? Which of those? Because they all have different pronunciation, and that depends if you do the vowel points in what way or not. So that was a difficult project to even think about, to do speech-to-speech. And so we decided to take Middle Standard Arabic, MSA, which was the stuff you see on the TV, which kind of the overall stuff, but we didn't, even back then we didn't go to it all the way. So does that exist? So these are big These are great questions. These are difficult, and these are ones that just the linguists in general deal with. Now we have to deal with computational linguists that have to put systems and build them. It's a big task. So I'm not aware of these generic speech recognition systems that can do it. Bev, question?
There is a phonetic acoustic speech and sound system in Japanese that they've been doing some work on in Japan. But it's not international at all. It's purely Japanese, but it is phonetic.
Right. That would be basically a Latin. That's kind of a phonetic scriber for Japanese. Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's still language specific. But here, the question is, what do you do if you have a language that has nothing written about it, and can you just walk in there and just have them record, and then can you spit it out in International Phonetic Alphabet? What I did when I was at SIL, we just spent their 9 weeks learning to pronounce the sounds and dictate them and listen to them.
Record other languages and it'll spit out the data, but they haven't really built anything around it. I mean, the only real structural and models that are built around it are for the Japanese language, but you can maybe extend it.
And this again is the idea of bootstrapping. Can you do something? And I think so.
You mentioned voice to voice, and so my question was, actually what I should have asked was, do you need a written one? And you're saying, yes, we do with our current technology. We do need it written down somehow. Right?
Well, you've got to do speech to speech, you've got to pass it through some symbolic way. I mean, we could invent another thing, whatever we want to call it. In translation systems in general, you've got this. In some even translation systems, some of the knowledge-based systems, you can do into these frame semantic things, and you can do it to multiple languages. And there's all kinds of different approaches to this. But when you do speech to speech, you've got to the word like that. I mean, is that a word in English or not? Well, no, it's just a sound. It's said in certain contexts, but doesn't have any meaning. But how do you know of and hey? What's the difference between the two? Well, one has meaning to it, and the other one is just might be some kind of interjection at some point in time when you don't care. But how do you know how to distinguish between them and do it? And then in the other language, do the same thing. So you've got to describe what sounds have a meaning to them that is recognized in what we call, I don't want to call words, but semantic meanings that happen in a structure that we do utterances, sentences that have meaning, and you want to convert those meanings to meanings, and those have sounds, and how do you get out the filtering of the noise, that's noise around it, versus what has meaning. So usually what you want to do is you want to convert the sound to something that has meaning, and then convert the meaning to meaning, and then you can put it back to the sound that's related to the meaning. So this is what linguists do all the time. So it's kind of hard to go from a sound to a sound, because how do you what's the relationship between them?
Jeff, there's also the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a thing on conversational and multimodal, and taking the locales and the standards and building kind of structures around some of that on the multimodal space.
So International Engineering Task.
Yeah, it's the Internet Engineering Task Force.
Internet Engineering Task Force.
IETF.org, and they've got a thing. It's like conversational applications that they're doing some work with around languages and locales. It's really
language and locales, which is.
But it's not. But it's all again, web text-based designs and architectures. But you could do some acoustic stuff off of that concept, architecturally.
So getting able to do the acoustic stuff off the concept, but it's web text, and I guess there was a little discussion this morning about which content is used, and a lot of stuff is off the web, which is written text. And so we have to deal with too is that what is your mother tongue and my mother tongue for the English speakers in the room, and for the French speakers it would be the French, and others. But your mother tongue is what you have grown up speaking. It's what, we'll give an example, and this is my example all the time, is, the thing that you plug a hose into outside of the house, you turn on the water, what's that called? No, that's inside the house. The faucet's inside the house. What's the one out the outside of the house? How do you spell that? How do you spell the word spigot? Huh? Come on, folks. Some people said K-I-K-E-T, some said G-O-T. No, I was in Seven Falls, Colorado Springs last week. And I've always used this example in all of the classes I've ever given for 10 to 20 years because it's a word I've never written. I've always said it, but I've never written it. So I always thought it was kind of CK until many years ago I saw it in a dictionary or something. I don't know. But I was in Colorado Springs. I have it on my BlackBerry. I took a picture of it. It was right there. And it says, water faucet, make sure they put it under the spigot. S-P-G-I-O-T. S-P-I-G-O-T. It's the first time I've ever seen it written. The first time. But we all pronounce it k because you say it fast. Just like you say water instead of water, unless you say it slow, or if you're British. But I always say water. So you've got this pronunciation thing that's here. And so you've got this, there's a lot of this that's involved where you're dealing with language that's spoken, and you never see the words. And then it comes down to the whole Ebonics debate that happened 15 years ago. And Tom Sawalis made it very clear. It says the whole thing, the problem is that language, your mother tongue, is what you speak. And we all go to school and learn a second language called our written language. And some people get good at it, and some people don't. It's just a fact. And it doesn't matter what school you go to, top part, Ivy League or not, some people just don't learn to write very well. And so it has nothing to do with your language ability. It just has your ability to learn a second language called a written language. And so this plays a lot in the things. And so what happens my French written language has gone down, has had attrition over the past 20 years because I write mostly in English. But I did my master's and doctor work, I wrote them in French. And so I've had attrition there, and so I don't write as much. So my way of writing isn't as good as it used to be. And the same thing in living out of America for so long. I wrote in French so long, I came back and my English was atrocious. In grad school, they said, God, I remember coming back and one of the journals I was writing for, and a non-native speaker was the editor of the journal, as like red marks all over the thing. So this, a lot of the text, and the point of here is that a lot of the text, a lot of the content that's being used for all these systems tends to be written language. It might be formal, it might be informal, but it's not the same as spoken language. And you'll say things, and I'll say things, but how a lot of things that we say, the whatchamacallit, where do you ever seen whatchamacallit written? In like comic books, but that's it. So a lot of the things that we hear and say aren't things that we write, and a lot of things that are written are not things that we speak. So you don't actually have speech data that reflects, or written data that reflects speech, and you don't have written or spoken data that has written manuscripts to go with it, and that's where you want that linkage. So this is we have data problems. We have data problems. So and this is for English or French or Spanish, where we have a lot of data. Now we start coming to these other languages that don't have much data to start with. So how can we create it quickly? Any other questions? I've got a couple things I want to come to, but I want to let you ask the questions because I might answer them as I'm going.
You've been talking fascinating about resource-poor languages, but there's a big difference. Say Turkish, you have a lot of written material, you have dictionaries, but you don't have parallel text. Right. And the problems are probably different than languages in which you have, in your case, in the Creole, you don't have word lists.
You don't have word lists. We created them. Turkish has its own thing that also went through some major reforms. So there were major reforms to happen for Turkish. So, and I know Multilingual had a good article in 2003 about that language specifically and the reforms it went through. But each of these languages has its own issues. And then you have the issue of what do you do if you have monolingual data available? Can you use it as in electronic form or not? Or do you have to type it all in? Okay, to get electronic data. And you have parallel text to be able to even start doing something with. And there's a lack. We don't even have monolingual data for some of these. We don't have bilingual parallel data. So how can you begin to even put this together? And if you don't have the spelling system to even start with, or even a written language, then how fast can you get this out in a urgent mode situation in disaster relief? Or I know that the context we were doing 12 years ago is we were trying to do rapid development and rapid deployment systems for the peacekeeping operations, because when you're doing military things, you can't choose the language you're going to go into. It kind of happens to come about, and based on economic world factors. So you can't know what's going to be the next hot language.
So with your experience, can you prepare for disaster?
So the first thing to do is, can you build language-independent systems? And that's what we did at Carnegie Mellon. We tried to build, so we were doing Serbo-Croatian, Korean, Haitian Creole, we did French and Spanish, and we were working on Arabic. So that's enough of different typologies to kind of deal with different things. And you had the Cyrillic and the Latin based on the Serbo-Croatian and Serbian, so we had that to kind of play with too. So we tried to have a language-independent one so we could do it. And it was a mixture, it was kind of a mixed system. It wasn't just a statistical, it was a statistical and example and rule-based kind of all mixed together. No, it was example and statistical mainly back then. So it allowed us to be able to deploy, and we did timings, how long we could put it together. So we gave one poster at a conference. We said how fast it took to do each language, and it was the same system, just using different data, different translated. And we actually took the same English source, Newswire, and I had 3 teams of different translators inside. So we just translate the same data into all the languages, and then we'd tag the data. So you tag it in English with topics, and then you know what all the data is in all the other languages on the topics. So you can do that too.
From a more practical point of view, we need to look at disaster and...
So reference, what do you do? What kind of reference data, or what kind of things you could do to do quickly? What's missing today are sets of reference data and that's one of the things I want to come and say here is, what can we do for the future? What is happening today? I'm talking to a lot of grassroots organizations. They come to me, and everybody comes to me, for Haiti. Churches come to me, and people, web documented people are coming to me. They get housed in Haiti, so I'm even finding helping to get in churches. But what I'm finding is that some of a lot of the grassroots things that are happening there. So one of the churches, I heard that a couple of days ago, there's a church that I'm helping train people to do water filtration in Haiti. So they need to translate the manuals about how to use the water filtration devices or systems to able to have clean water in Haiti. So there are a lot of what we're missing are best practice types of reference documents. We don't have a repository of this. And we've had a lot of disasters happening over the last 20 years. And it can be a tsunami here, it can be an earthquake here, it can be, tornadoes, hurricanes, and all that here and there. But we don't have repository of data on certain topics that can be used in a rapid deployment thing. And so this is what we're missing. This is kind of pretty obvious. And that's what we need to be able to do. And that should be set up. And then you can reuse that.
Set up in what way? Set up
for potentially being translated, or
so basically,
and use it as a kind of a springboard to get translated material quickly. If there's a translation system available for it, then you could pre-translate it and kind of clean it up and get it.
Crisis situation, basically.
You could have something
set of data that you would then translate
immediately.
Oh,
into the immediate in that language.
You're not saying pre-translated for a set of languages or whatever where you suspect there might be a need or.
I'm just saying that we don't know what the next language could be. In Chile we had the earthquake, and that wasn't drastic because there were less people hurt, but also Spanish. That language wasn't as problematic as the context in Haiti was. But yeah, what would happen if something happened and we had it like the whole in Indonesia several years ago with the tsunami? How do you communicate immediately?
Having a predefined repository of crucial documents or whatever is a good idea. Yeah. The only problem is the ramp-up period. So if there was an earthquake in some remote region of the world where a language was spoken that we have no resources for, there's still a ramp-up period to get the documents translated into that language. You still have the time. You talked about the diplomat project where you basically had a couple of years to scale up. Obviously, in a crisis situation, you won't have that period.
You don't have it. Yes, it's exactly the problem. Now the thing is, we're down on the Oregon coast a couple weeks ago. Now I see tsunami warning area. I say, wow, this is like So maybe in some of the areas that could be potentially, they might see some disaster opportunities coming, or maybe like the whole diplomat one was for peacekeeping operations. So there are languages that are known to be potentially hot. Why not begin to start working on certain types of reference materials, at least for the languages that might potentially be problematic for different types of issues, and beginning at least build up or work with the linguists that are working in these languages, do their PhDs and whatever, and kind of work together. So building up something that would be useful, but not just wait to be reactive, but try to be proactive in more ways. So we can just wait. Like the whole thing of Haitian Creole. I mean, we did a lot, but we didn't do enough. I know that there were thousands of people that died, maybe directly or indirectly by amputation, because but more could have, I think about it, more could have been saved if 10 years ago when I said we needed to have $800,000 to start this company that will do all these software programs, software applications to be able to do this, if we had done that 10 years ago, rather than I'm being told to, this is the market. The market would have already been established, it would have been there, and when it hit, we would have just been able to immediately have things there, and that's all hindsight. But I said a long time ago. So this is now kind of we just learn from this and say what would be the next steps, what would be some kinds of repositories that could be, and you can start working on them in a progressive way. Now, who's going to translate it? That's a whole other issue. Are you going to pay them for it or not? Are they going to do it? How long do they want to volunteer their time? But again, this is there are a lot of languages out there, and you just have to start with the ones that will be potentially issues.
Volunteer translating on Wikipedia, for example.
Sure, the Wikipedias are a lot. There's a lot of Wikipedia.
If you've got medical information someplace.
Right.
Where
and that is now a source. That is a source of content now for some are looking at. And some of the, I know that the Asia Online MT company, machine translation company, has been working a lot with Wikipedia translating into those languages and creating a lot of that source data. They talk about that and how they do it. And so that creates a data source for those languages. So there are ways that has been used for that purpose.
Jeff, we're at 3:30.
We're at 3:30 now, so.
Additional discussion should be saved. We have this room until 4.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and thank the speaker, Jeff.
Well, thank you all for all coming and for your questions and everything. This has been a big word, so thank you for that.